You know that feeling when you answer your phone and something just doesn't feel right? Well, imagine that moment, but instead of just a weird vibe, imagine hanging up that phone and realizing that years of savings, decades of careful planning, and everything you'd set aside for retirement is simply gone. If you care about protecting your money, your pension, your benefits, and your future, make sure you hit subscribe right now. Because what happens in the next few minutes could help you avoid becoming a victim of something that's happening to thousands of people every single week. And honestly, this is the kind of thing most people only learn about after it's too late. Pause. So here's what I want to talk about today. We're going to walk through exactly how one phone call turned into a financial nightmare for a real person. And more importantly, we're going to break down the patterns, the warning signs, and the specific steps you need to take so that this never happens to you or anyone you know. Look, the reason this matters right now is that these scams are becoming increasingly sophisticated. The people running them know your age, they know your concerns, they know what you're worried about. They know you care about your pension. They know you're concerned about government changes. They know you're worried about fraud. And they use that knowledge against you. This isn't just about losing money. We're talking about the psychological trauma that comes with it. We're talking about the shame people feel. We're talking about senior citizens who thought they were being careful, who did everything right, and still got caught. Let me set the scene for you. Picture Margaret. She's 67 years old. Worked her whole life, paid her taxes on time, built up a pension, had about £87,000 in her savings account. She's not wealthy, but that money represented security. It represented the life she'd planned to live. It represented independence and dignity in her later years. One Tuesday morning, her phone rings. The person on the other end has a professional tone. Calm, authoritative. They claim to be calling from her bank's fraud department. Now, here's the thing that's important. Margaret's bank had contacted her about fraud before. Not a scam. Actual fraud. So this wasn't completely outside her experience. The voice on the phone says, "Miss Margaret, we've detected unusual activity on your account. Multiple suspicious transactions. We need to verify your identity and secure your account immediately." Now imagine you're Margaret. Your heart rate goes up. You think about all the news stories you've heard about identity theft. You think about criminals accessing your account. You think about losing everything. And that's exactly what the scammer is counting on. Here's where it gets serious. The person on the phone asks Margaret to do something very specific. They ask her to log into her online banking right away. They ask her to take a screenshot. They ask her to send that screenshot to a secure email address so they can verify the situation before it gets worse. Now, most people know not to give out passwords, but this scammer isn't asking for the password directly. He's asking her to take a screenshot of her account. That feels safer. That feels like something a real bank employee would ask for. That feels like a protective measure. But here's what Margaret doesn't realize. That screenshot shows her login session. It shows her active connection to the bank. And once the scammer has that, they can often intercept it or use it in ways that give them access to her account. Margaret sends the screenshot. Within seconds, the person on the phone says, "Thank you. I'm seeing some concerning activity here. I need you to stay on the line with me while I work with our security team." And now Margaret feels like she's part of the solution. She feels like she's protecting her money. She feels important and involved. The scammer then gives her a series of instructions. He says, "I'm going to have you transfer your funds to a secure holding account. This is a temporary measure. Once we verify everything is safe, we'll move the money back. But we need to do this right now because if these fraudulent transactions continue, you could lose access to these funds." Brief pause. Think about that. The scammer is using Margaret's own fear against her. He's creating a false sense of urgency. He's making her feel like she's making a smart decision. He's making her feel like she's being proactive. Margaret asks, "How do I do that?" And the scammer walks her through it, step by step. He tells her exactly which buttons to click. He tells her the transfer address. He tells her the amount. He's right there with her the entire time, coaching her through the process. Margaret transfers £47,000 to this account. But that's not enough. The scammer says, "We're seeing additional suspicious activity. I need you to move the rest as well. This is critical. If you don't do this now, you could lose it all." And Margaret, at this point, is in a state of panic and confusion. She's been on the phone with this person for over an hour. They've been patient. They've been professional. They know information about her account. They feel real. So she transfers another £35,000. That's £82,000 gone. Sigh. And here's where the story gets even more painful. Once the scammer has the money, they hang up. Margaret tries to call her bank back, the real bank, and this is when the truth becomes impossible to deny. There was no fraud. There was no security issue. The person she was talking to was never employed by her bank. All of that money? It was transferred to an account in another country. By the time the fraud is reported, the money has already been moved multiple times. It's been converted to cryptocurrency. It's been sent to different countries through different banking systems, and, in most cases, that money is gone forever. But here's what might surprise you. Margaret wasn't stupid. Margaret wasn't careless. Margaret was careful. She was alert. She didn't give out her password. She didn't click on suspicious links. She just trusted a voice on the phone. She trusted the situation. She trusted the authority. And that's the most dangerous thing about these scams. They don't require people to be foolish. They just require people to be human. Pause. Now, you might be wondering, well, how does this relate to me? How is this important to my situation? Here's the thing. This is happening right now. Not just to Margaret, but to people every single day in your neighborhood, in your community, and possibly to someone you know right now. The Financial Conduct Authority has reported that pension scams alone are costing people hundreds of millions of pounds every year. And that's just pensions. That doesn't include the general fraud calls. That doesn't include the banking scams. That doesn't include the government impersonation calls. What's happening is that scammers are becoming increasingly sophisticated about targeting people over 50. They know that people in this age group are more likely to have accumulated savings. They know that people in this age group are more likely to have pensions. They know that people in this age group are often more respectful toward authority figures, which means they're less likely to question someone who sounds official. And honestly, they're using technology that makes it incredibly hard to tell the difference between a real call and a fake one. Most of you probably know about something called caller ID spoofing. That's when someone makes their phone number appear to be coming from a different source. So the scammer's call shows up on your phone as coming from your bank's actual phone number, or the police, or the tax authority, or the pension company. You look at your phone. You see Barclays Bank, or Nationwide, or HSBC. You think it must be legitimate. And then you pick up the phone. The voice on the other end knows information about you. Maybe they know your address. Maybe they know your account number. Maybe they know your name and age. This information isn't secret. It's available from data breaches. It's available from public records. It's available from social media. But to you, it proves that this person is who they claim to be. Here's where it gets really important. These scammers understand psychological pressure. They understand how to create urgency. They understand how to make you feel like you're part of solving a problem rather than being victimized. If someone calls you and says, "You're about to lose all your money," you might hang up. But if someone calls and says, "We need your help to stop someone else from stealing your money," you feel differently. You feel like you're being smart. You feel like you're being protective. You feel like you're in control. And that's the emotional manipulation that makes these scams work. But here's what most people don't realize, and this is really important. Even people who know about these scams can still fall for them. It's not about intelligence. It's about psychology. It's about how the human brain responds to stress, urgency, and authority. You might watch a story like Margaret's and think, well, I would never do that. I would ask more questions. I would verify the call. But in the moment, under pressure, with a professional-sounding voice telling you that your life savings are at risk, most people behave differently than they expect to. And that's not weakness. That's just being human. Now, here's what we need to talk about: the specific red flags, the specific warning signs. Because even though these scams are sophisticated, they follow patterns. And if you know the patterns, you can protect yourself and the people around you. The first red flag is unexpected contact about urgent financial issues. If your bank needs to contact you about fraud, they will not ask you to verify your identity through sensitive information. They might ask you to call them back on a number on your bank card, but they won't ask you to provide passwords, login credentials, or screenshots of your account. The second red flag is pressure to act quickly. Scammers create artificial urgency because urgency bypasses your rational thinking. If someone is saying, "We need to do this in the next hour," or "Your account will be frozen if you don't act now," that's a massive warning sign. The third red flag is requests to use unusual transfer methods. Real financial institutions will tell you to use standard banking methods. They won't ask you to use cryptocurrency. They won't ask you to use wire transfer services. They won't ask you to use money transfer apps to move money somewhere temporarily. The fourth red flag is being told to keep the call secret. If someone on the phone says, "Don't tell anyone about this," or "Don't discuss this with other bank employees," that's a scam. Real bank employees will never ask you to hide your conversation from other people. The fifth red flag is a request to go to an ATM or to perform transactions while on the phone. Real bank employees might ask you to verify information or to take certain actions, but they won't coach you through a series of transactions step by step while keeping you on the phone. The sixth red flag is someone claiming to be from an organization and then asking you to call them back at a number they provide. Here's what you do instead. You hang up. You find the official phone number for that organization through your own research. You call them back independently, and you ask if they were trying to reach you. Most of the time, the answer is no. Brief pause. But here's something that's even more important than the red flags. And this is what could save you or someone you love hundreds of thousands of pounds. You need to have a process, a personal protocol, something you do every single time someone calls you with unexpected news about your finances, your pension, your benefits, or your accounts. Here's the process that actually works. First, do not make any decisions while on the phone. Not that call. You can tell the person on the line, "I appreciate your concern, but I need to verify this information independently before we proceed." This isn't rude. This isn't suspicious. This is smart. Second, hang up the phone. If this is a legitimate organization, you can contact them. But you need to use contact information that you find yourself, not information that someone on the phone gave you. Check the back of your bank card. Check official websites. Check documents that came to your house. Third, never provide personal information to someone who calls you first. This includes passwords, PINs, account numbers, or any sensitive details. Ever. Not even if they sound official. Not even if they know some information about you, because any legitimate organization already has that information and won't need to ask you for it. Fourth, talk to someone you trust before you do anything. This might be a family member. This might be a friend. This might be a financial advisor. Someone who can listen to your story and help you think through whether this makes sense. Often, when you explain a phone call out loud to someone else, the logical inconsistencies become obvious. Fifth, report the call. If you believe you've been contacted by someone impersonating a financial institution, report it to that institution directly. Also, report it to Action Fraud, which is the National Fraud Reporting Center. The number is 03-001-23-2040. This helps law enforcement track patterns and protect other people. Now, I want to talk about something that doesn't get talked about enough, and that's what happens after someone falls victim to one of these scams. The emotional impact is profound. Margaret didn't just lose money. She lost confidence. She lost trust. She became anxious about receiving phone calls. She became ashamed. She didn't want to tell her family what happened because she worried they would judge her. That psychological impact can last for years. Pause. And what often happens is that once someone has been victimized once, scammers know they're more likely to be victimized again. There's a secondary scam that happens frequently. Someone calls the victim and says they're from a recovery service. They claim they can recover the money that was lost, but they need an upfront fee. They need the victim to pay a small amount to recover a large amount. And people who've already lost money are often willing to do this, because they're trying to fix the problem. They're trying to recover what they lost, and scammers know this. This secondary scam can cost people thousands of pounds on top of their original loss. Here's what I want you to understand about why this is happening right now. The technology infrastructure that makes these scams possible is becoming more accessible. Caller ID spoofing tools, databases of personal information, AI voices that sound incredibly realistic. These technologies are getting cheaper and more sophisticated every single month. At the same time, many people over 50 have accumulated significant savings or pensions. They've worked hard their entire lives to build financial security, and they're now in a position where they have something worth stealing. Scammers understand this, and they're targeting people in this demographic specifically. But here's what's important, and I want you to really hear this. You have power here. You have the ability to protect yourself. You have the ability to recognize these situations, and you have the ability to help people around you avoid becoming victims. The people running these scams are counting on something very specific. They're counting on people not knowing what to do. They're counting on people trusting their instincts without questioning them. They're counting on people feeling too embarrassed to talk about it afterward. If you know the patterns, you can break that cycle. Brief pause. Let me give you some practical steps you can take starting today. First, educate yourself about current scam patterns. There are legitimate resources for this. Websites like cefas.org.uk, which is the UK's fraud prevention service, publish regular updates about new scam types. Following these resources helps you stay ahead of what scammers are currently doing. Second, talk to your family members about this. Even if you think they know, they might not. Have a conversation with your partner, your adult children, and your close friends about how you expect legitimate financial institutions to contact you. Make sure they know that you will never move money based on a phone call. Make sure they know that you'll always verify independently. Third, consider setting up additional security measures with your bank. Some banks offer transaction alerts that notify you every single time money leaves your account. Some banks offer you the ability to put daily transfer limits on your account. These aren't perfect protections, but they add another layer of safety. Fourth, be cautious with personal information on social media. Scammers piece together information about you from multiple sources. Less information available online makes it easier for you to verify whether someone who calls really knows you. Fifth, if you're unsure about a call, it's okay to be skeptical. It's okay to be cautious. It's okay to seem rude by hanging up and calling back independently. Any real institution will understand this and will be patient with you. Sixth, consider asking a trusted family member or friend to be involved in major financial decisions. Sometimes just having another person in the room, asking questions and thinking critically is enough to prevent a scam. Seventh, mark your calendar quarterly to review your accounts. Check your bank statements. Check your pension statements. Check any investment accounts. The goal here isn't paranoia, it's just basic financial hygiene. You want to notice unusual activity as quickly as possible. Sigh. Now, here's something I think is really important to talk about, and I'm going to be honest about this. If you have fallen victim to one of these scams, that does not make you stupid. That does not make you weak. That does not make you careless. These scams work because they target something fundamental about being human. They target trust. They target the desire to be proactive and protective. They target respect for authority. They target the fear of loss. And scammers have refined their techniques over years. They figured out what works. They figured out how to exploit normal human psychology. If this has happened to you, what matters now is what you do next. Report it. Talk to someone you trust. Understand that recovery might be difficult, but that there are options. Contact your bank immediately. They have fraud departments. They might be able to reverse some transactions. There might be protections you're not aware of. And please, talk about it. The shame and secrecy are part of what allows these crimes to continue. When people are silent, scammers remain invisible. When people speak up, patterns become visible. Law enforcement can identify networks. Other potential victims can be warned. Pause. What happened to Margaret is not unique, but Margaret's story is also not the end of her story. What Margaret did was decide to use her experience to help other people. She started sharing her story. She started warning her friends. She started talking to her grandchildren about scams. And in doing that, she found meaning in what happened. That doesn't erase the financial loss, but it redirects the energy from victimhood to protection and power. You have the ability to do the same thing. You have the ability to know this information and to use it. You have the ability to protect yourself, and you have the ability to help people around you avoid becoming victims. And honestly, in this moment right now, that matters more than ever. Brief pause. Let me be direct about something. The reason I'm covering this topic in such detail is because I see the impact these scams have on people's lives. I see people who worked their entire lives lose everything. I see the psychological damage. I see the fear. I see the shame. And I believe that information is the most powerful protection against this. If you're watching this right now, there's a good chance someone in your life is going to receive a scam call at some point, maybe this week, maybe this month. But statistically, if you have friends and family members, someone you know is going to be targeted. Your ability to recognize these patterns, your ability to react calmly, your ability to help someone else think through a suspicious call, that could literally save someone hundreds of thousands of pounds. And it's not complicated, it's just being informed. It's just knowing what to look for. So I want to encourage you to share this. Not because I need you to share my channel. Share it because someone you know might watch this and recognize a pattern that just happened to them. Someone you know might watch this and realize they've been avoiding calling back about a situation that happened last month. Someone you know might watch this and decide to talk to their parents or grandparents about potential scams. That person could be protected because you shared this information. Here's what's true. Scammers are going to continue evolving their tactics. They're going to continue finding new ways to exploit trust and psychology. They're going to continue targeting people who have accumulated savings over a lifetime of work. But what's also true is that people who are informed are harder to deceive. People who know the patterns are more resistant. People who talk about these issues openly are more protective of themselves and others. And that's why this matters. This channel exists because I believe that being informed protects you. Being informed helps you make better decisions about your money, your pension, your benefits, and your future. Being informed helps you stay one step ahead. And if that's something that matters to you, then please subscribe. Because these kinds of updates, these kinds of warnings, these kinds of practical information, that's what we cover here. We identify changes, we identify risks, we identify patterns, and we help you understand what they mean for your life. This channel is for people who refuse to be blindsided. It's for people who want to understand what's happening so they can protect what they've worked so hard to build. It's for people who believe that knowledge is the best defense against fraud, scams, and financial loss. If that's who you are, then you're in the right place. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss updates. And please share this with people who need to hear it, because Margaret's story doesn't have to be your story. And it doesn't have to be the story of someone you love. Stay informed, stay protected. We'll see you on the next one.